I'd rather create something that others criticise than create nothing and criticise others.
If you have high quality product behind the bar, it's like weapon.
It's not about the figures, it's about who those figures are.
The Hospopreneurs Podcast.
I'm going to drink this beer.
Yeah, let's crack them.
With James Henderson.
Hello and welcome to episode 21 of the Hospopreneurs Podcast. Today we have a chat with John O'Brien, who owns Milk Bottle Projects, a Melbourne-based business focusing on social media management, PR and Facebook advertising for hospitality and lifestyle businesses. John shares some serious value on the show today and insights that are filtered through a range of industries and experiences. Let's get started. Cheers. Hello and welcome to the show, John.
Thank you very much, James. Thanks for having me.
No worries at all, mate. No worries at all. The way I like to open the episode is by asking if you have a crazy hospitality story.
I would say the craziest hospitality experience that I've encountered or story that I have would be at a Q&A that I went to where I was invited as a guest, and the special guest speaker was the one and only Slash from Guns N' Roses. It was a sort of a really intimate affair for 200 people, an event in Fitzroy, and it was very unusual but very exciting to sort of be there on hand and hear from the great man. So it kind of morphs into hospitality entertainment there, but there were a few beers involved and a really interesting person to hear talk about his experiences.
Yeah, did you get to know Slash a little bit from that experience?
Oh, look, I got a photo with him and, sort of said g'day, and that was the extent of our meeting, but that was a pretty crazy party to attend and one that I won't forget
yeah, for
in a
sure.
hurry.
Leaves an impression on you for sure. I mean, not a lot of people get to share the room with Slash, so cool.
No, that's right. That was it was something I'll always remember.
Awesome. Well, John, before I ask what you do, I'd like to ask why you do what you do.
Sure. So basically, my background was in entertainment, record companies, music, and then I sort of became involved in hospitality, ventures and venues, and really was passionate about, good food, good booze, good company, and that sort of morphed into Milk Bottle Projects. So it's really based on my passions, which is food and beverage, and working in marketing, which was where I started at Mushroom Music. So I'm really lucky in that sense that I get to work on my passion projects on a day-to-day basis and get paid for it. So it's really a labour of love, and I enjoy every aspect of it.
What is it that inspires you, that ties that all together, and really, what do you love about music and about hospitality that really drives you?
Yeah, look, I think it's when you have people that come together in the in the name of good music or good food or an event, or catching up over wine. I think it's quite remarkable how food and wine can bring people together, and I think it's the thing that really drives me to this industry, and it's been. Yeah, one of the real highlights of working within Milk Bottle Projects is having an event and seeing people converse over wine and cheese and get to know each other, from complete strangers to regular friends and colleagues. It's a really interesting industry to work in.
Yeah, awesome. And obviously the pairing them well works out to be an even better experience. The synergies of pairing wine and cheese and food and whatnot correctly is something that's come up previously, and I think that that's something super amazing, that we can get this even more fantastic experience when things are paired well. When you get a good venue with good food, good company, it just creates this experience that just isn't, you can't compare that.
No, absolutely. Look at I look at it as it's sort of like show business. These hospitality events, and when you open your doors to patrons, be it a private event or to the general public, you really are on show, and it's showtime. So your staff are on notice and doing their best to impress and be polite and courteous and welcoming, and your drink service and your food service, everything's on show, and so you're spot on. It's about creating this sense of ambience and getting everything right to make for a memorable evening.
I like that comparison to show business because I kind of see our job in hospitality is performing. You're on
Absolutely.
while you're on. And then when it's over, you can chill.
Absolutely.
I'm very much an advocate of like going super docile when I'm off. It's just like alone. I like to be alone. When I'm at work, it's people, but when I'm on my own, it's off. It's certainly alone. But my next question for you is how did you get into hospitality? I mean, you talked about music there, but what was it that really excited you and pushed you into the hospitality side of things with the music?
Yeah, look, I guess for me, and it was kind of a tipping point, is I actually became a venue owner. So I a part owner of a pub in Melbourne, and that for me was I guess when I realised that wow, I'm involved intrinsically in the hospitality industry. Obviously, prior to that, I'd worked in a jazz club. In marketing, I'd worked in an old theatre in Thornbury in marketing, and I'd done various roles in different types of venues. But when I did end up going into business as a venue owner and operator, that was when I sort of really threw myself into the flames, so to speak, and my sort of hands-on relationship with hospitality was spawned.
Yeah, what was the name of that venue, John?
So the Workers Club, so a venue in Fitzroy. It's been there for a good 130 years now. So the old Rob Roy, so live music, craft beer. We also do classic pub fare right on the corner of Gertrude Street and Brunswick Street in Fitzroy.
Yeah, right. That's I know exactly where that is. That's right in the centre of the party district in the area there too.
Correct. So it's a lovely sort of junction there. You get lots of foot traffic, trams going past, so it ensures that we're always busy.
I wanted to ask, with your background, what your opinion is on the speakeasy, and this is a bit of a curveball question, but how
Sure.
can a bar like that, that deliberately keeps things on the down low, get its name out?
Yeah, it looks a really interesting one, and a very, very good question, and a tough one as well, I think. There is a fine line. So, we maintain and we sort of have this mantra in our business, promote or perish. If you don't promote your venue, it makes it very hard for people to know about you. But then on the flip side, if you're a speakeasy or, that sort of prohibition style bar that's hidden off the beaten track, you don't want to be in publications and editorial every day of the week. You want to keep it sort of clandestine. I guess it's a fine line. It's making sure that when you do promote and you do have some editorial or you get a feature in a publication, that the message is right and that you don't do it too frequently. It's a really hard one. And I guess word of mouth, we're lucky that people sort of talk about, the venue that I'm involved with. It's become a bit of an institution. So the word of mouth carries the marketing message, so we don't have to do as much in the way of online marketing and editorial and that kind of thing. So it's a really fine line, but I would say you can't over promote a speakeasy because you want to keep it cool and hip and undiscovered to an extent.
But how do you get inspire that excitement within people who haven't heard about it?
Yeah, look, again, I think it would probably come down to making sure that the experience is 100% spot on when and if they do encounter that speakeasy bar. And when I say that, it's staff, it's the product, it's the vibe, it's the ambience, it's the music, making sure that your game is really strong, and that when people come through, it's an unforgettable experience. Right from what you're playing, the ability to enjoy conversation, the ambience, what you're pouring, food offerings, and staff, and how they engage with patrons and other things. So I guess it's just making sure that you're always ready to go, because you never know who's coming in and who's having a drink in your venue.
You brought up ambience there. Like, how do you feel a venue can create its ambience, or even design an experience for a customer?
Yeah, look, for me, and I'm 33 now, and my wife and I don't get out as much as I used to, but I guess it depends on your age and what you're after, and the venue. But for me, as a general rule, I think being able to hear the music's so important in a venue, be it fine dining where you're sitting down to foie gras and Russian caviar, or in a speakeasy and having a Brooklyn lager. You've got to have some music playing, and it's got to be at appropriate level so you can talk, and it's got to be appropriate for the venue as well. So music, number one for me, is a big key in setting the tone and the ambience for a venue. I think lighting as well. Again, that comes down to the vibe of the venue, but nice low lit lighting, is really nice, and creates a soft mood. So I think staff go a long way in contributing to the ambience of a venue as well. So if they're engaged and they're happy and creating their own good vibe, I think that's infectious, and that really helps with the ambience of a venue.
Yeah, awesome, cool. They're awesome answers, John. I'm glad to know that what I've been thinking about has been very similar as well, because I'm working on a bit of a document at the moment. It might turn into a book about hospitality management, and the 4 components that I have to create an experience. The experience that you're looking for, or an ambience within a venue, are people, decor, product, and music.
Yep.
So like they're the 4 things that I boil the whole experience down to. When you can break all those down a lot further into exactly the sort of vibe you want to attract the customer demographic you want too.
Absolutely, look, and you're spot on there. I guess when you talk about decor, perfect example. If you're in the middle of winter and you can go to your local and there's a fire crackling and there's a nice Chesterfield, you can sit in front of the fire and have a pint, then you're going to keep going back, and that creates a really nice level of ambience. So you're spot on with decor as well. That's definitely something to throw into the mix.
That experience just reminded me of the Rochi there.
Yeah, the Rochi, which is the Rochi's gone through a few transformations, but that's the way it is with hospitality venues.
I just had that exact experience there last year, so I was like, that took me there. So,
yeah, absolutely. And look, we've got an open fire at the Workers Club in Fitzroy as well, and people often just camp out next to the fire in winter, and they'll stay there. They'll read the paper. They might just have one pint, and it becomes a real rite of passage in winter to wander down to their local and sit in a comfortable chair and have a drink and just watch the world go by. So I think you're spot on. Look, decor is massive as well. You've got to be comfortable.
Love it. My next question for you, John, is what's the biggest hurdle you encounter with marketing decision makers in a business?
Yeah, look, I think the biggest hurdle that we encounter is, with all due respect to hospitality owners and operators and marketing managers, but a lot of them don't see the value or ROI sometimes in just doing very basic marketing for hospitality venue. It's often overlooked. So if you're opening a new venue or a new space, I would say more often than not, unless you're a really experienced operator and a big group, I think marketing is overlooked. And to be fair, not even experienced operators in big groups give enough juice to marketing at times. So that's the biggest obstacle that we encounter as Milk Bottle Projects, is convincing venues that that marketing is so important, be it just good social media management or having a influencer event or making sure that their website and their marketing collateral is looking good. It's just a lack of understanding. It's not a refusal to understand or to explore. It's just most people that open hospitality ventures don't have marketing backgrounds. So we encounter that regularly. It's, look, we don't think we should do this, or we'll do it in-house, and we'll use our iPhones to take photos, and then all of a sudden your product's obviously compromised.
So what do you do to educate them?
Look, I think it's basically going in. Nikki and I are really hands-on, speaking to the respective venue owners and saying, hey, this is what we do. This is our experience. And then we have a presentation where we basically go through and we show them what we do in the way of social media management. We show them the level of photos that they should really aspire to. That's sort of I guess, an expected level of quality in the hospitality industry when you're talking about digital marketing, and basically give them a really nice and friendly rundown of how it works and how it should work without being patronising. It's really important not to be patronising because, as I said earlier, it's sometimes not their shtick, and they are just there to run a venue and organise staff and pour beers and make coffees and do the rostering, etc., and make sure that the dollars are coming in and paying the bills. So, yeah, we try to be very encouraging and supportive.
In terms of hosting events, it's an incredibly stressful experience. I'm going through it myself at the moment. I've hosted a few events, but people are very flaky, or they don't buy tickets until close to the event. How do you create that sense of urgency?
Look, I think it comes with time, and once you get to know your database, so to speak, and the people on that database, the publications, the influencers, the bloggers, etc., they will be more inclined to come to one of your events if you can create a really great rapport with them, and obviously as well, if you're getting them along to events, the events have to be special. And I think that's what we try and do. We just did the relaunch for Electric, which was originally Electric Lady Lounge in Paran there, and we had show bags and some really cool activations, and it was really glamorous, and it was important that people that hadn't come to our events before had a really wholesome, fun, interactive experience at that first event, so they know in future when they get an invitation from our PR agency that it's going to be a really fun, quirky event that they want to be involved in. So I think it's a mix of making sure the events are amazing so people don't forget who you are and they come to your second and third events, and secondly as well, making sure that you make a real effort to meet people at those events and putting a face to a name so that people know who you are and are more inclined to come to future events.
When I had a chat with Nikki, she also mentioned Singapore. What's happening there with you guys?
Yeah, so we're looking to expand what we do into Singapore. And the reason why is you've got some fantastic cafes particularly, and bars obviously as well. But Singapore's got an amazing dining scene, but we're focused on the cafe scene at the moment. And there's some great operators who aren't really taking advantage of digital marketing, especially social media. And we're looking at going into Singapore and helping them set up processes, helping them develop their social media strategy and really pushing that. It's a really funny thing. It hasn't really taken off in Singapore, and there aren't a lot of digital marketing and PR agencies that are focused on this vertical being hospitality in Singapore. Whereas if you go to Bali and you look at, like a Sister Fields, which is a cafe in Seminyak, you look at their socials, it's immaculate. It's just it's stunning representation of what they do. But unfortunately, in Singapore, not quite the same level of quality at this stage.
Okay. What is it that you guys do differently to other marketing agencies or hospitality marketing agencies?
Yeah, so look, we like to think we're really involved from the get-go. So we will come in, we'll meet with our client or prospective client, and we form an enduring relationship. So if we can help them out in any way, shape and form, obviously Nikki and I have hospitality backgrounds, so we sometimes have opportunities to collaborate. So we might get a phone call from someone that's after a food truck at a music festival, and we can talk to our clients about collaboration. So we like to think that we don't just work with you until the end date on your contract. It's more of a holistic working experience, and we like to put you in contact with other suppliers, other clients and other collaborators. So we're really hands-on in that sense, and we take our business really personally, and we like to think that our clients notice that as well.
Okay, obviously it's fantastic to have that personalized experience with any professional that you deal with. In terms of building that network, did that come from working in the industry, or have you built that outside of that as well?
Yeah, look, a little bit of both. We had to work hard to make contacts in the publication realms. So, your broadsheets, your urban lists, concrete playgrounds, your bloggers. That took a bit of time. We had some contacts. Obviously, Nikki's been hands-on working in craft beer and bars and doing a number of things there as well. So she had some strong contacts, but it certainly it took a little bit of work to make those extra contacts.
Okay. When you say extra work, is that just calling people or talking to strangers in bars, or how do you do that?
Yeah, probably more the former. So like just emailing people, calling people, sending out a lot of what we call cold emails, which isn't ideal, but it helps. So introducing ourselves and saying what we do, sending through a synopsis of what we do, and then obviously the best thing you can do is going into a cafe, a restaurant, or a bar, and then obviously making that introduction in person, which we did as well. So it was a combination of both.
Fantastic. The next question I want to ask you is: did you guys have a mentor or anyone who you could speak to about helping you through that process of even just transitioning into hospitality, especially with you coming from music as well? Did you have someone who showed you the ropes?
Look, not so much for me. I'm sure that Nikki did, in her capacity working in bars. She would have had a manager, and that would have really helped, obviously, with good feedback, constructive feedback there, moving into hospitality. We really bounced ideas off each other. We didn't have anyone specific who sort of showed us the way. And look, to be honest, it would be great. I think there's a real market or opportunity for hospitality consultants, people that have a wealth of experience that can offer their services to people, be it in, an operational capacity who are opening venues, or maybe even, marketing agencies like us who are coming into a vertical, not cold, but lukewarm, and need some advice and some contacts and some hookups. So, yeah, there's definitely, I think, a market there for that kind of assistance. But we were pretty cold heading into it, apart from a few contacts that Nikki had. We didn't really have a mentor, but we would have loved the opportunity.
That's actually something that I'm working on building myself, is a hospitality consulting business. I want to focus on strategic management consulting in hospitality. So,
great.
Yeah, cool. So maybe we can have a chat another time, John.
Absolutely.
But awesome, cool. So wrapping up, I want to get to the last few questions for our episode. What sort of innovations or innovative techniques have you seen in marketing within hospitality?
Yeah, look, I think the most interesting thing at the moment is the way that you have this sort of conduit, which is an agency who will use brands and influencers. When I say influencers, bloggers really is the more colloquial term. And what they'll do is, they will introduce a brand to a bunch of influencers who can in turn promote their product or their service. I think that's been the most interesting development in our world. And the hospitality sphere. It's just a really innovative way to promote a brand, and then obviously, getting influencers to do more in the way of collaboration. I think that's been incredibly interesting.
Is it because that concept? When I think about that, I mean, we've seen that in other industries, but does that mean hospitality is lagging behind other industries in terms of marketing? Or say, like, the first thing I think of there is even fashion. But is fashion an industry that we can draw marketing inspiration from?
I think so. Look, to answer your question, are we lagging behind in hospitality? Lagging is, I guess, perhaps a negative term. We're maybe off the front runners, so to speak, in as far as marketing goes. I think we, as an industry, sort of developed organically. Marketing in the early stages was word of mouth, and obviously now the digital's taken over, we're moving forward. But I think hospitality is such a fast-paced industry that sometimes, as a general rule, we're just so focused on the service side of things that the back end isn't paid enough attention. So maybe you're right. Maybe we are a little bit behind, and I would say that the fashion industry is fairly progressive. and those collaborations, as you aptly pointed out, are very much a part of that industry. But yeah, we're getting there in hospitality. I think it's just a case of catching up to the pack.
So what sort of innovations do you see taking place in the future?
At this stage, I think that the collaborations with brand and influencer will develop, but I think it'll go to another level where you might have, for example, and this is already happening, you look at the Master Chef model, but you might have a sommelier or a sous chef or a well-known bartender who is involved in more sort of corporate brand collaborations. I know that the big guys already do it. Your Gordon Ramsays and your Jamie Olivers, working with supermarket chains and the like. But I think you'll see a lot of the mid tier come through as well. So not necessarily household names. You'll see real personalities who come from the hospitality industry start working with brands and doing more online in the way of collaboration. I think that's where it's going, and I think that'll be the next development in my eyes. That's where I see it going.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to seeing what you guys do to roll out some of that too. That's going to be really exciting to see.
Absolutely. No, it's always on the cards.
What's your best resource been for success in hospitality?
Best resource for success in hospitality. Look, I think it would probably be, to be absolutely honest, a lot of our influencers. They are so well connected, and people just in general. I think without the people, you don't have the database. Without the people, you don't have the events. Without the people, you don't have the referrals for other business. So I would say as a resource, the power of direct marketing and networking is incredibly impactful and powerful. That's probably been our best resource, is drawing on our personalities and meeting people. That way, that's been the best way for us to move forward.
Well, I mean, we are in a service industry, so it is
right.
all about the people.
Absolutely. Without the people, there'd be no one there to pour your beers or wait on food and tables. And so, yeah, you're 100% spot on.
What about the idea that machines could do that?
I think that's at this point in time a fairly outrageous idea or concept. But you're right. It's potentially reality the way we're going. Obviously, 10 years ago, you wouldn't have fathomed a automatic checkout counter at a supermarket. Obviously, you can go through now and don't have to see anyone. I think it'd be a sad indictment on our industry if we did go down that path. A very sad indictment. I think it'll probably happen in America first and foremost.
It actually is. There's a place in Vegas. Yeah.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'm looking at. I had a chat with them online. Yeah, but I think it's definitely sad. But it could end up at a point where we get clubs or some of these larger high volume venues that just pump out automatic stuff, and the more bespoke boutique bars have that very human component, which I think is actually what hospitality is about.
Absolutely. Look, and you're spot on. I think the interesting thing, the conundrum you would face as a venue if you sort of automated your customer service would be, how would you control responsible service of alcohol and all that? That would be very interesting. I guess you could have someone sort of as a general manager operating the venue or making sure people were behaving and not drinking too much, but it would throw up a couple of curveballs. But yeah, look, it'd be very sad, and I think the idea of going to your local, sitting at the bar, getting to know your bartender who knows your drink, who knows your coffee in the morning is really is a really nice thing.
Fantastic. I like to think about these innovations and sorts of techniques or systems that are going to come into play in the future. But I've got a couple of questions for you left, John.
Sure, mate.
What advice do you have for anyone who wants to do what you do?
Look, I think you've got to be patient. We've taken 3.5 years to build our agency now, and I think anyone that wants to go into hospitality has to realise it's a slog. So there is, there's a time to build, and there's a time to consolidate, and there's a time to enjoy the spoils of victory, so to speak. But I think it's about having patience, and patience is definitely a virtue in this industry. And we've been lucky that, you know, Nikki and I have been able to expand at the rate we have. But you've got to love it as well. I mean, as you know, working late hours and being tired and not getting your weekends if you're working on the floor in a venue is challenging. And then from a marketing perspective, you know, you need to understand that venue operators, you know, they're a little bit more less inclined to actively participate in marketing. Initially, it's a case of convincing them on the ROI and that kind of thing. So there's a lot of patience involved across the board.
Yeah, and you mentioned there, you brought up again just there about this lack of knowledge with the decision makers on marketing within venues, and that's a challenge for you. What's your biggest challenge right now?
I think at the moment, for us right now, it would probably be the lack of interest or understanding when it comes, certainly not, maybe not interest is the wrong word to use, understanding when it comes to, I guess, really small mum and pop cafes and more smaller bespoke venues that don't place such a great emphasis on marketing collateral, websites, socials, that kind of thing, photography, that sort of tier of the industry. It's sometimes difficult to show them that, you know, you've got to have photos that are attractive, because people eat with their eyes, people drink with their eyes, and I think it's getting that level of quality in that tier that's really important. And it's sometimes hard to show them, and justifiably so when your margins are tight. You don't want someone coming in and charging you for photography. You know, if you've got a staff member with an iPhone who has, you know, a sort of a penchant or a love of photography in their spare time, you know, naturally you'd use that person. So they're the challenges, just, you know, making sure, you know, that content control in those sort of smaller venues is maintained and at a level that's quality.
Yeah, but you also brought up a point there I'd like to touch on, which is to be able to identify within your team, you know, the sorts of skills that you might be able to use to save money within the business as well.
Correct. I think it's a fine line. You know, you can use a waitress in a social media management capacity, but often what we see happening is that they run out of time because they're working on the floor or they're not at work on a particular day. So you lose some of that control. But you are right. It's so important, especially in an industry where it's pretty cutthroat when it comes to you know, making money, paying the bills, to ensure that, you know, you can save costs wherever you can and use people's strengths in a way that enhances the business and saves you money.
Yeah, beautiful. Well, my last question for you today, John, is what's coming next for John O'Brien?
Look, for us next as an agency, obviously looking to expand into Singapore, and you know we've started doing some work with George Kalambaris as well, so that's been really interesting. So as an agency, we're looking to expand and work with bigger groups, and obviously go into bigger markets. For me, it's about building the business, building the team, and looking outside of just the agency at other venues. Looking at, wine bars, fine dining, although fine dining, the money's, it's hard when you're doing fine dining, obviously, your costs are fairly high, but without rambling on, it's just, making sure that always sort of looking at new opportunities and expanding and building our team, be it in a marketing capacity and as a venue operator.
Brilliant. Well, thank you very much for being on the show today, John. It's been awesome having a chat.
Thank you, James. Appreciate your time and your insights.
For more information on John O'Brien's marketing, head to milkbottleprojects.com. Stay in touch with the show after hours at Hospopreneurs on Twitter, Instagram and Facebook. Do you know a hospopreneur? Shoot us an email, hospopreneurs@gmail.com. Creativity and innovation in hospitality. The Hospopreneurs Podcast with James Henderson.